Good morning, everybody. I'm Michelle Dowling, and I'm here to talk to you today about accounting. So welcome. I'm also joined by Naomi Duran. She's our program representative, and she's also working tech today. So you'll see her in and out, but she'll also be fielding your questions, working polls, all kinds of good stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. So here's our agenda for today. So most important thing probably is we're going to talk a little bit about the discount you get just for attending today's webinar. So please stay tuned to the end of the webinar and we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to go over accounting program information, everything you're going to need to know to get started in the program and what to expect in the program. We're going to talk with one of our instructors, and we're also going to talk a little bit about financing your education. And then the last thing we're going to do is the steps to becoming a CPA, because we know a lot of you are interested in these classes because you're interested in sitting for the CPA exam. So we want to fill you in on the nuts and bolts of what that entails. And then we'll open it up for questions at the end. So even though there is a question box on your screen and you're welcome to submit questions throughout the webinar, and some of them we may, Naomi may be able to answer by texting back, we're probably going to hold a lot of the questions to the end so that everybody can hear them. All right. So we did talk a little bit about the $100 discount. So encourage your friends and colleagues to catch this webinar on recording. We'll be posting it on our website in the next week or so. They, of course, won't get the $100 discount, but they'll still get to see the information. The way we're going to do the discount is Naomi will follow up with an email to each of you, probably within the next week or so, with the coupon code. And so then you can use that when you call in and enroll for your first class. All right, so as I mentioned, myself and Naomi are the primary contacts in the program, and we're kind of your advisors as you progress through the program. But if you have any questions about logistics, enrolling, cost, discounts, anything you need to know to get started, we encourage you to call our student services staff. They're very knowledgeable. They know all about the details of how the administrative part of the program works, and you can contact them by phone or email anytime during the work week. And they're really helpful. All right. So we're going to start off now with a little poll because we want to get to know you better to know who we're talking to. So we're going to ask you why you're interested in taking the accounting program here at UC Davis. So feel free to answer as many that apply, and then we'll take a moment to look at the results. All right, from a preliminary look, it seems like a lot of you are interested in sitting for the CPA exam, so that's great. Yeah, so she'll show the results, and so it looks like about 40% are interested in pursuing the CPA exam, and that's really common, and we do design our program around that, so that's great. It looks like about 30% of you are looking for a career change, also very common, and no problem. Our program, although we have some academic prerequisites, which are to be expected in a program like accounting, we really design our program to be for someone who may be switching completely and new to the discipline. And then we actually have a good amount, 30% of people who are just lifelong learners who want to expand their knowledge. And that's great as well. This is really useful information for just about anybody in any kind of business or organization. And we've had a wide variety of people take our courses. Okay. So given our limited time today, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the structure of our program. You can get a lot of great information on our website, but I do want to highlight a few things. The most important thing probably logistically is that all our courses are now offered online. So the nice thing about that is it doesn't matter where you live, it doesn't matter if you're traveling, as long as you have an internet connection and you can log on to the course, you can participate. And a lot of our elements can also be streamed through your mobile device. So we try to make it really flexible, really technical, so that, or high tech, but not too technical, so that you have flexibility, because most of our students are working professionals. So your job, your family, all those things are going to be on your plate as well. Each of our courses is also worth 4 quarter credit units. And so that's going to equate to about 2.6 semester credit units for those of you coming from a semester system. But we are cognizant that not everybody's on the quarter system, and we design our program so that it meets all the CPA requirements from the California Board of Accountancy. So each of our classes is 4 credit units. The other implication of that is that those are pretty serious college level courses. So you're going to want to devote a pretty significant amount of time, at least probably about 10 hours a week to your coursework, because it is a 4-credit unit class. So you can also take our courses individually or part of the certificate. So what that means is all our courses are academic. They're approved by the UC Davis School of Business. And you can take them individually if you just need a prerequisite for something, or you just want to take, say, principles of financial accounting because you're a small business owner and you want to understand the basics of accounting. That's fine. You can come in, you enroll, you pay for that one class, you take that one class, and you're good. But for those of you who know you want to do our entire certificate, and we have 2 of those, which I'll talk about in a second, you would simply take all the courses in the certificate program. And you would also do a declaration of candidacy. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So we have 2 certificates, as I mentioned. We have Accounting Essentials, which is the core accounting courses, principles, intermediate accounting 1 and 2, things like that. And then also 2 electives. So we're currently asking essential students to take 4 core courses and 2 electives. And those electives are things like tax accounting, auditing, things like that. The Accounting CPA track is a 9-course certificate program that offers all the credits and coursework you will need to fulfill the accounting coursework requirements of the CPA board. So that will allow you to sit for the CPA exam. So like I said, check our website out for up-to-date information. We are currently streamlining our certificate programs, which we're really excited about. And that'll allow us to introduce things such as a fast track accelerated course plan, extra discounts for committing to the program early on, and also lighten up on some of the certificate requirements. So I think it'll be a win-win for everybody. But you'll just want to monitor our website. We're not changing our courses. We're not changing our schedules. So you don't have to worry about any of that. But we are going to make things a little easier for students down the road. All right. Also, if you ever have a course that you want to take that isn't currently being offered in the next quarter, just click on the Notify Me function on our website, and we will send you an email as soon as that course is being offered. Because we don't offer every single course every quarter because they are all run by live instructors. You know, they're not recorded. So we offer about 4 courses a quarter. So if you want to take auditing and you say, oh, it was just offered, it's not going to be offered next quarter, just do that Notify Me and we'll let you know when it's coming up again. So this time I want to talk a little bit about our instructors. So all of our instructors are working CPAs. They all work as accountants during their day jobs, and then they teach for us as well. And the reason we do that here at Continuing Professional Education is because we want our instructors to be really knowledgeable about what's going on in the profession right now. We also see them as kind of guides and mentors for our students to kind of talk you through what to expect out of the profession. All of our students are adults. Many are working professionals, and if not, they're just changing careers, and that's why they're not currently employed. So they really, I think it works a lot better to have you interacting with someone who's also a working professional. Having said that, we also ask students to be respectful of our instructors because while we have protocols about how fast they'll grade your work and respond to you, they are at their day jobs during the day. So we have to understand that when you communicate with them, you also need to plan ahead your work and not kind of expect them to jump as soon as you have a need, because they may very well be at work. So we have 4 instructors right now. All of them are CPAs, and all of them also have masters in various areas of accountancy. So we really think they bring a lot of knowledge and talent to our program. Fortunately, today we get to be joined by one of our instructors. So Jim Veneman, he works for the state of California. He is a CPA. He also holds an MPA. He's been teaching for us for a long time now, really knowledgeable. He teaches our 2 of our elective or specialized courses, auditing, and also accounting for government and nonprofit organizations. So thanks for joining us, Jim.
Well, thanks, Michelle. I'm excited to join this presentation today, and welcome here to my office here in Sacramento. Indeed, I'm at work today,
Yeah, exactly.
just like you said. And yes, I've got some emails from students today asking questions.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Yeah, Jim's really responsive and really great working with the students. Jim, just to start off, I'd like you to tell everyone a little bit about your background and how you came to be an accountant.
Well, as I tell people when I tell my story, when I was a young man, if somebody would have told me when I was in my 20s that I would be end up in the accounting profession and I would be a CPA, I'd have told them they were nuts, because there's no way that I would have done that. My father was a CPA, and he worked really hard, and I wanted to go a different direction. So When I went to school, my first degree was, I had a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Communication Arts because I wanted to go in the broadcasting business. And I did that for a while. I went into the Air Force for a few years and worked in Armed Forces Radio and Television Service, which sent me overseas, and that was all fun. But there came a point when I had a kind of an epiphany, I guess you'd say, and I thought, do I really want to pursue this career, or do I want to do something different? So at the time, this is before the internet. As you can see, I'm not exactly a young guy here. So there was one day that I was wondering, well, I wonder what kind of jobs are out there. So I picked up a copy of the LA Times on a Sunday and looked at the job ads, and I noticed there were 6 pages of accounting and auditing jobs. So I thought, well, maybe this is something worth looking at, even though this is what my dad did. But maybe I should take another look at it. And well, as it turns out, I went back to school and got my master's degree in accounting. I went to the University of Cincinnati and graduated in 1979 and started working in banking. So I spent my first 14 years in the banking industry. And the banking industry was a pretty good place to work, but it got to a point where banks started to buy and sell each other. So I thought, well, maybe I should make a career change to something else. And I moved to California and ended up with a job here at the State Controller's Office in California, where I've been now for, I just had my 25th anniversary here just a few months ago.
Wow.
So along the way, I got my CPA certificate in 2004. So it's been a pretty good ride. This has been a really good career for me. And I've been working for UC Davis Extension since 2011. Back when I started with the school, we had only live classes. So I've seen us transition from doing all live classes now to all online classes. And so that's been fun to be a part of. So.
Jim, you brought up a good point, and I want to make sure that I'm clear on something. So you mentioned that you'd worked for the state for a long time as an accountant, but you didn't actually sit for the CPA exam until about 15 years ago. So is it true that to hold the position of accountant at the state of California, you don't necessarily need a CPA?
No, there's no requirement that I'm aware of in any organization but the state to be a CPA. Generally speaking, the requirement to be a CPA is in private accounting firms. But here at the state, folks want to be a CPA because they want to use it as a way for promotion and to get into management primarily.
And mastery, right?
Yeah, well, that too, yes.
No, that's a very good point, because I want to mention that because a lot of people come into our program and their goal is to sit for the CPA exam, but that is a very challenging exam. And so I also want to let people know that this could be a journey. You can take our courses. If you decide to take our courses a la carte, you have 5 years to complete your certificate work. So really don't overpressure yourself. Remember that there's a lot of job opportunities with accounting knowledge that don't require you to necessarily sit for the exam. And that's something you can do as you get further along in your profession. So Jim, what would you recommend to students who are looking to start the program and take your courses?
These courses are they're pretty fast paced. We move along at a good pace. In my auditing class, we go through 21 chapters in 12 weeks. In the government accounting class, we go through 18 chapters in 12 weeks. So it moves along at about the same pace as a master's program. And what I've always told all my students in my classes is that if you don't have a background in accounting terminology, you haven't taken any accounting courses at all, then you're probably going to get lost in the first couple of weeks, because both of my classes presume you have an understanding of accounting.
And the prerequisites too, which are several.
Right. Yeah. But, and I've noticed that I have a mix of students that are in all different places. Some of them have accounting degrees. Some of them have degrees in all types of things. And they're scattered now all across the country. And if they're willing to put in the time, there is a lot of time required to work on these courses, because like I said, if you look at my textbook, it's a lot of complicated material, and we go through it pretty quick, but we try to, through the lectures and the homework, try to make it, simplify it as best we can so it's understandable. And so it seems to work because most of the students do pretty well.
Yeah, and that's something I want to let people know, because we often get that question, how many people succeed? the high majority of our students pass our courses and successfully get a certificate in the time they allotted. So I think most of our students have some college under a belt. You're not required to, but they understand the importance of studying. It's really about putting the time in. I don't think it's rare for us to encounter a student who doesn't have the capability to fulfill the course requirements.
Right.
It's really just whether they have the discipline and time to put in the commitment. And as I mentioned, for a 4 credit unit class, you're going to want to plan about 10 hours a week per class. So you don't want to overload yourself. There are weekly assignments and weekly due dates, which I think really helps keep people on task. But also at the same time, the majority of our students are very successful. And so I think if you're realistic and you plan ahead, you'll do fine. So I do want Jim to ask you to talk a little bit, since you were a career changer yourself, I'd like you to talk a little bit to our career changers, because a lot of people come in and they're worried that they're already going to be behind or that it's going to be too big of a change. So if you could talk a little bit about your experience with students who've been on that path.
Well, yeah, I had that same issue, because when I decided to go into accounting, I was already in my early 30s. And, you know, usually by the time you're in your early 30s, a lot of people are expecting you to have already a career in mind and be well along the path. But I decided to switch midlife, I guess you'd say. But it worked out. You know, you're never really, we have a wide range of people here at our office. You know, we have a lot of young folks in their early 30s and 40s, and some older people. I think what I would say for career changers, if you're going to the accounting profession, you need to kind of figure out whether you want to go into auditing or accounting, because those are the two main professions for accounting jobs. They're quite different jobs. In auditing, you can be an external auditor or an internal auditor. In accounting, there's a wide range of different things that you can do, but they're very different kinds of jobs. And that auditing requires you to usually go out to somebody else's place of business and figure out how their accounting system works, and work with accounting statements and compliance issues, and work with people a lot. Accounting jobs mean you're probably sitting at a desk creating financial statements or financial reports, and you're doing a routine over time, over 30 days, 6 months, and a year. So they're very different jobs. And the other thing I would say is, I've heard people say, oh, I want to get a job in accounting because I can make good money. And that's about the worst reason to go into a job. If you don't have a passion for working with numbers, and also working with people that work with those numbers, you may make good money, but you're not going to like it. So.
That's a good point. That's a valid point. We noticed in our poll that kind of the largest group of people who are here today are interested, at least at some point, in sitting for the CPA exam. We talked a little bit about that, but and we'll talk to a Becker rep later on in the webinar. But anything you'd like to share about the exam in particular from your experience?
Well, exam is certainly difficult. That hasn't changed over time. I get a quarterly magazine from the Board of Accountancy, and so the pass rate is still running around 50%, and it's been that way for years. The exam is quite different now than when I took it. When I took it, it was a paper exam. Now everything's online. So it's a different process, but the exam questions haven't changed any. You're still required to understand a lot of material. And I think the thing about the CPA exam, it's not, if you're smart enough to pass college courses or get a degree at a college or university, you're smart enough to take the CPA exam and pass it. What makes the exam hard is the amount of material that's on it. I used to go into it. I remember going into the CPA exam, I felt like my head was the size of a basketball because all the stuff I jammed into my brain to pass the course. And that's what makes it hard, because of the amount of material. But there are really good resources out there for studying for the exam. The Becker course is one of them, and we'll be talking to a Becker rep here shortly. There's a lot of other materials that you can use, and I know that I used, and it worked out really well. So that's, yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much.
Be prepared. Yeah, don't underestimate it. Yeah,
it's not easy by any means. Yeah, but it's doable.
Okay, well, that's always good. So Jim, before we leave you today, well, Jim will stay with us for the Q&A, but before we move on, is there anything else you want to share with people interested in taking our courses?
Well, our courses do cover a wide range of subjects, whether you're going to be a career changer or for the CPA, studying for the CPA exam. I know I've talked to the different instructors that you saw their pictures here earlier, and I feel like our program really does a really good job of explaining how accounting works out in the real world. I've always marveled at, you know, courses I've taken in the past at college, that how you take a course and you go through this textbook and you get out in the real world and it's different. Well, I know in my two courses, that's definitely not the case. And I've always enjoyed hearing from students that have taken our courses. They get back to me sometimes and let me know how things worked out for them. And it's exciting to hear how they've gone on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, no, that's great. All right, well, thank you so much, Jim. And Jim's going to stay on behind the scenes and help us with some of the questions you folks have. But at this point, we're going to let him go off camera, do a little work, and we're going to talk a little bit about the courses themselves. Thanks so much, Jim. All right, so we did cover some of this, but I want to get into the specifics. For example, next quarter, for anyone interested in starting in summer, we're going to start classes July 1st. We did mention that they go 12 weeks, so they'll go through September. That's what we call our summer quarter. Every single quarter, we offer the introductory course, and that's Principles of Financial Accounting. And that's because that's the prerequisite for all the other courses. So for people who just want to get a kind of a sampler, that would be the course you would take if you're just going to take one. For people wanting to do the whole program or fulfill all the accounting course requirements for the CPA exam, that's where you would begin. So you start off with Principles of Financial Accounting. For those of you who perhaps have already taken courses with us in the past, or if you've taken Principles of Financial Accounting at another university, we will be open to talking with you about if you might be able to transfer that single course in. We always have to make sure that it's the same course, same credit units, that you achieved a C or better. For anyone interested in pursuing a certificate or having any transfer courses count towards a certificate, you have to have a solid C or better. And that's not just 70% or a C minus. It's actually whatever the syllabus defines for that course as a solid C, usually around a 73. So for those folks, we're also offering Intermediate Accounting Part 1. Intermediate Accounting is a 2-course program. So obviously Part 1 is the prereq for Intermediate Accounting Part 2, and we offer them at alternate quarters. So summer quarter, we're offering the first part. So that's another one you're going to want to take early on. The third class we're offering is Principles of Cost Accounting. This is another core course. So Principles of Financial Accounting, Intermediate Accounting 1 and 2, and Principles of Cost Accounting are the 4 core courses. So for those of you, either certificate is going to require that you fulfill both or all 4 of those courses. So again, whether you take cost accounting or intermediate accounting next after principles is fulfilled is up to you. And then the 4th course we're offering this quarter is what we call an elective or a specialized course. And that's Jim's Accounting for Government and Nonprofit Organizations. And that's a really good one for anyone who has any inkling of working for the state, local government, or interfacing with those entities. So those are the 4 courses we're offering. As I mentioned, for anyone who's just starting out, you're going to want to start with principles. For anyone who already has that course taken care of, you're welcome to take any of the other 3. We don't prevent people from taking more than 1 course per quarter, especially since we know some of our students are currently in between jobs or working part-time, or some of them are even undergraduate students, or we had 1 high school student. But we do advise people to just stick to 1 course per quarter if you are working, because that is a big commitment. Like I said, about 10 hours a week, and that's going to add up. It's going to vary, obviously, depending on how much accounting experience you have, how comfortable you are with math, but we always want people to be prepared. All right. So at this point, we're going to do another poll. So now that you've heard about our programs, we're curious, do you think you're interested in just taking individual courses a la carte, kind of taking them here and there? If you're interested in pursuing a certificate, which would be either 6 courses or 9 courses, and again, keep your eyes out because we're planning on streamlining that down the road. Or if you're just not sure, you really don't know what to expect until you get in there, work out your finances, set aside the time. All right, so we'll give it a moment for everybody to respond. Right now, it's looking like the majority, high majority, almost 80% of the people are interested in pursuing a certificate, and that's great. And that's what our program's really designed for. It's where I think it comes out at its best. Perfect. Yeah. So again, if you are interested in doing a certificate, I'll talk in a little bit when I talk about pricing about some of the applications and forms you'll need to do, but everyone is welcome to enroll in the certificate program. And all you have to do is make sure you fulfill the requirements, which are completing either the 6 or 9 courses, depending on what program you're going to do, achieving a C or better. So to pass a course a la carte, you just need to avoid an F. To have a course contribute towards a certificate, you need to have a solid C or better. And you're going to want to complete all your certificate coursework within 5 years, beginning to end. And that's just because we need to keep things current. All right, thank you. Well, let me close this out for you. So I want to talk a little bit about the online tools we use. So we use 2 tools primarily. Our online learning platform is Canvas. And for those of you who might have attended UC Davis or many other universities, that's a pretty common online course tool. It's really intuitive, really easy to use. And we do put up some learning tutorials on the course for people who are a little less comfortable with online learning or with computers. Highly recommend doing those online tutorials. But really, we have found most people just dive in and start using it, and it's all very clear, which is great. And then sometimes we'll use Zoom, and we use Zoom sometimes for office hours. Zoom is, of course, the platform we're using right now. We sometimes use it if they have a special speaker or they're doing a special lecture. And that's also another really easy freeware that you can use. The one thing I would say to people, this comes up every once in a while, is a lot of people think, oh, I will do my coursework at the office because that way I'll be in a quiet environment, have a really nice computer set up, strong internet. Make sure that your employer allows you to use the Wi-Fi. Some employers like the California DMV and others we've discovered have closed networks, and there people learn at the last minute that they're not able to do their coursework at work. So just make sure you've inquired about that. A lot of people do it at home too, that's fine. You just want to make sure you have a strong Wi-Fi. But just so you don't get caught off guard. All right, so I want to show you all a picture of what it's going to look like. So this is kind of what our class looks like in Canvas. So you have a really nice presentation. You're going to have your lecture. You've got an actual instructor. It's not just a canned recording. He's available. You send him emails. He does office hours. He's going to be grading your assignments, commenting on your assignments. There's some wonderful tools in Canvas to show you the rubrics. You can see how he's making his grading decisions. He can make comments right onto your papers or exams. He can explain to you what you did wrong. We're also going to start rolling out a really new feature where we have the instructors do problem sets live or as a recorded video. So when you do the homework or you have a quiz and there's a problem that really stymied you, you can see someone work through the problem, just like in the classroom. There's also, this is going to be the main point for your syllabus, your due dates, deadlines, everything like that. And it's also, you'll use Canvas email to communicate with your instructor, your classmates, and with Naomi and I. So I want to talk a little bit about program costs, because I know that's really important to a lot of people. So the tuition for each and every course is $880, and your textbooks are going to be separate. So you're going to want to budget for that. If you're working with an employer reimbursement or special funding, you can let us know. We can provide the textbook list so that you can make sure that gets included in your any kind of funding that you're doing. If you do decide to pursue a certificate, there is a certificate registration fee of $125, and we encourage people to fill out that form and pay that fee, usually during your first class. So if you start with principles, you know you want to do the certificate, go ahead and take care of that. That way you'll be locked into the certificate requirements at the time and you won't get any surprises. It also allows Naomi and I to have you on our radar, and we can really help you through the program. We do offer a variety of discounts. If you enroll 2 weeks prior to the start date of the course, you'll get $50 off the course. If you are a member of the Cal Aggie Alumni Association, or frankly, any UC Alumni Association, you'll get $50 off every course. And if you have people from your company wanting to enroll together, we'll give you a 10% discount. Some of these discounts, just be aware, if they're not available on the online enrollment, just call in and you can enroll by phone and they'll honor it. I do want to make you all aware, discounts cannot be combined. So you're going to want to pick the best discount for what suits you, whether it's the $100 for today for your first class, maybe your subsequent classes, you do the $50 off. that type of thing. And as I mentioned, as we redo our certificate program requirements, we're looking to add additional discounts, probably starting in the fall. So that'll apply to anybody starting now as well. All right. So I want to take a moment to talk about options to finance your education. So UC Davis Continuing and Professional Education, because we're not a matriculated program like the UC Davis undergraduate degrees, you don't earn a master's or a bachelor's. We don't have some of the federal funding and grant options that you might have experienced as an undergraduate. So a lot of our students either do loans or training funds. And fortunately, we have a person on staff, Diane Carr, in our Student Services Office, who does nothing but help students with their funding. So she can help tell you about some preferred lenders that we use. She can talk to you about training options, especially if you're a veteran or if you're taking advantage of like workplace relocation opportunities. So she's a great start. Even if you think you're maybe eligible for something, I recommend sending her an email. She loves to work by email. She's out of our Sacramento office. So I would definitely get in touch with her. And sometimes those loans or training funds can take a few months to put in place. So it's not too early to start now if you're thinking of enrolling for the July quarter. All right. So we're gonna take one more poll. So we'd like to know a little bit about your accounting experience. So, have you taken accounting courses in the past? And feel free to just select one because we want to really see where people fall. And this is an opportunity, we'll talk about it with the Becker rep as well, but it's an opportunity to remind all of you that our coursework fulfills the accounting coursework requirement for the CPA exam, but the CPA exam also has requirements for general business classes. A lot of students fulfill those classes as part of their undergraduate degrees, but you'll want to make sure, and we'll, if you ever want to contact us, we can provide kind of a cheat sheet that the California Board of Accountancy did about the educational requirements. It's also on their website. We can provide the links. And they also are one of the few agencies to answer their phone. And I've called them on many occasions for a kind of finer point. Someone has a degree from overseas, or someone took this course a long time ago, and they're great. Their hotline will really help you understand, because they don't want anyone to applying to sit for the exam and then learning, oh, I'm a whole course or several courses away. Okay, so it looks like the majority of you have taken some accounting courses, so that's great. So as Jim said, that'll help you with the nomenclature and the terms and all that protocols that are used, so you'll have a little bit of a leg up. A lot of you were business and econ majors. That will help those of you wanting to sit for the CPA exam, because you'll probably be able to check off a lot of the non-accounting course requirements. But there are about 13% of you who haven't, and that's okay too. You'll start with a principles class, you'll get a real good exposure to accounting, and then really kind of make the decision if it's, indeed right for you and if you want to move forward. All right, great. So one thing we have here at UC Davis Continuing Professional Ed is a partnership with our UC Davis Graduate School of Management master's degree in accountancy. So that's an opportunity to actually get a master's in accountancy, and that's what several of our instructors have. It's offered in person here at UC Davis on campus. And to begin that program, you do need to meet several prerequisite requirements. And the nice thing is the courses in our program meet that requirement, specifically our principles of financial accounting and cost accounting. So that's something to keep in mind too. So if you're undecided, I know a master's degree is a big investment of money and time. You can do our program, even our essentials program will help fulfill the prerequisites for that larger program. And if you have any other questions about that master's program, we'll really encourage you to contact them directly, because they're going to be the best people to talk to about their program. All right. So at this point, we want to tell you a little bit about ways to prepare for the actual CPA exam. So you've done our programs, or you're in the midst of doing our programs, and you decide, okay, I want to start preparing to sit for the exam. We have a partnership with Becker Test Prep. It's one of several, but it's one of the more dominant test preps for accounting. They do a really great job, as Jim said, preparing people. And it's something to keep in mind. A lot of people think, oh, I don't know if I want to invest more money. But most of the CPAs I talked to did some kind of test prep, because the exam is very intense and you don't want to have to take it more than once. So we had a good conversation recently with Janae. She's one of our contacts over at Becker. And so I'm going to take the opportunity to play that interview now for you.
Hi everyone, my name is Janae Klinke. I'm the account manager for Becker Professional Education in California and Nevada. Becker Professional Education is an organization that works with universities, firms, and corporations to assist in students, employees, and staff getting licensed towards their CPA process. So we basically assist you in providing resources and information to get you where you need to go. And myself, I've worked with UC Davis Extension for the last 4 years, assisting their students, just making sure they have all of the resources, and the program itself is a great resource to make sure that you guys are meeting those educational requirements, which is step 1 in becoming a CPA. Educational requirements vary by jurisdiction and state, so you want to make sure that you're checking with the specific jurisdiction in which you reside. The easiest way to do that, to find out what your specific educational requirements are, is to go to NASBA's website, which is nasva.org. And I believe there will be a brochure that gets sent out after this presentation that will have all of this information in it as well. And NASBA's website will give a breakdown for every single state board. So as an example, in California, the educational requirements can be a little tricky to read in terms of what the requirements to sit for the exam are versus what the requirements to get licensed for the exam are. And that's why a program such as this UC Davis Extension program is very beneficial, because it will help you get through those requirements needed for both sitting and licensure, and help put you on the right track and get you closer to where you need to be. Usually, once the educational requirements are met, people will then apply to take the CPA exam. Application process, again, also varies by jurisdiction, but typically falls through AICPA. AICPA is the national governing body for certified public accountants. And AICPA is the institution that creates, develops, and scores the CPA exam. And most application processes will go through your state board, NASBA, or AICPA. Again, varies by state. Again, as an example, in California, people apply directly to the California State Board to make sure that they can be approved to actually sit and take the exam. Once you receive an approval saying that you are approved to take the exam, that's called an NTS, a notice to schedule. Once you receive a notice to schedule is typically good for 6 to 9 months. Also, again, varies by jurisdiction. But even though it's only good for 6 to 9 months, it's an easy reapply, which means at the end of, say, 9 months, you just do a reapply process. It's about a 2-week process just to get a reapply approval, and you can continue to test. One of the things that's important to note about the CPA exam is there are 4 parts to the exam, which is financial, which would be closely aligned to intermediate accounting. You also have audit, you have regulation, which is tax, and then you have business. And those 4 parts, all 4 have to be passed within one 18-month rolling cycle. So it's good to make sure that you, as Terry was mentioning, make sure you're planning and preparing and carving things out as best you can to know that you'll have an 18-month window to get them all passed together. When you actually go through and have received your notice to schedule, you've applied, you're kind of in that process, you're going to be, taking all of the concepts that you've learned throughout your UC Davis Extension course, and you're going to be really trying to put those together and create a study plan for yourself that's allowing you, as, again, Terry mentioned, which is sort of strategically trying to target a certain section at a time. You're not going to want to take multiple sections, but you're going to want to look at the best option for yourself in terms of which section to take first and which section to take next. A really good rule of thumb usually is you want to look at those sections that do have similar content or information. So typically in that case, you're looking at financial and audit tend to be the 2 CPA exam sections that have somewhat of similar content, and regulation and business have somewhat similar content. So you can kind of break those up. And even though you have 18 months, it's good to, I always say, tell yourself you have a year, knock one out every quarter. And that kind of puts it into an easier perspective, since we're all used to taking quarter classes anyway. And then when you get through the process of getting your notice to schedule and being able to actually go test, you want to be familiar with Prometric. Prometric is the actual testing facility where you will go take the CPA exam. There are Prometric facilities everywhere in every major city. And you can test at any Prometric for any state approval. So as an example, and I say this because as you start to work in the accounting field, you may have clients in various states or jurisdictions, or you may travel for your job. And if you are approved by one state, you can still test anywhere because this is a national test. So as example, if you are living in California and working in California, and you have applied to California State Board and got approved, but then you get sent to Colorado to work, you can still test in Colorado if that timeline matches when you want to test. So good to know. Also, Prometric's website, which is also in the brochure that'll be sent out, if you go to prometric.com, they have about an 8-minute video that walks you through the entire testing process. So what to expect on exam day, what the actual testing facility looks like, and you can schedule a test drive with Prometric, which they will allow you to go in and actually go through the whole process. And it's about a 30-minute window that they give you just to kind of experience it, which is always a great thing to do. And then for the CPA exam licensure, again, you've gone through this process of meeting your educational requirements. You've gone through your application. You've studied. You've gone to Prometric. You've taken the exam, and you've passed. Once you've passed all 4, licensure usually is also dependent upon work experience. So one of the best forms of advice that I can give you if you have not already been working in the accounting field, or I know many of you have said you were looking for a job change or looking to enhance your skills, one thing you might want to start to take a look at is internships or leadership programs or ways that you can start to obtain some additional accounting work experience while you're pursuing your educational goals. And that way, by the time you pass all 4 parts of the exam, you will have obtained that work experience, and then you can apply for licensure.
Perfect. All right, well, hopefully you found that helpful. I also at this time want to invite Jim back because Jim not only took the CPA exam, but also did the Becker program. So Jim, what do you think about the test prep options?
Well, yes, I'm a Becker graduate. I took the Becker course. When I started my work on the CPA exam, I had already been out of school for 14 years, and I pretty much had forgotten most of what I learned in college, and I needed a refresher course. Now, I mentioned during my presentation that there's a 50% pass rate on the CPA exam, and that hasn't changed. But if you want to up your odds of passing the CPA exam, investing in a review course is something I highly recommend. And what I found when I took the Becker course is that they taught me how to take the exam, and I found that to be extremely helpful because when you're taking the test, you know, there's a lot of material. So what I learned from the course is how to work with the questions, how to approach them, how to budget my time wisely so I didn't run out of time taking the exam. And just those 2 things alone were really helpful. And then, of course, the review of all the material. They go through all the material on the test and ask sample questions. And so by the time it came time for me to take the test, I was fully prepared and I passed on the first go around. So it worked.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, that's really good to hear. So at this time, I want to kind of open it up to questions. So some of you have already been sending questions by entering them into the Q&A box on your screen. And I also want to encourage people to enter more. So Naomi, what kind of questions do we have so far?
Sure. I don't know if you can see me yet. Hello, hi,
Scoot over.
Running Tech. So we had a great question. One of the students asked, I'm just looking to increase my business, finance, and accounting acumen so I can continue to progress in management. What selection of courses would you recommend? I probably don't need to go as far as becoming a CPA. My answer to that would be the Accounting Essentials Certificate. It's definitely the one where people who need an introduction to accounting or are just interested in using it for getting a promotion or helping them in their current job. That's definitely the certificate that we would recommend for you. The CPA exam track is as it is called, meant for somebody who's looking to take the CPA exam.
Yeah, and so then you always want to start with principles because you're going to need that as a prerequisite anyway. And then most of the people, we did have a series for a while of small business owners that were doing our program. And they just took the 4 core courses, and then they took electives that really helped them understand what they were going to be asking from their CPAs. So that's another thing to remember with our courses is a lot of us have the luxury of contracting with subject area experts to do that work, but we need to understand what we're asking of them to even prepare a statement of work or to review their work for us, their deliverables. So I think it's really beneficial, even if you're not going to go all in with accounting.
Another question that I got was about transferring credits. One student said that they took a class at Sacramento State University, and they're wondering if that course will be accepted as a substitute for our Principles of Financial Accounting course. To answer any questions about transferring courses, I highly recommend emailing us after the information session. We handle that all on a case-by-case basis, and it requires a review of the course that you've taken previously to make sure it's comparable to one of our courses. So go ahead and email us after the information session.
Yeah, and if it was at a reputable university, if it is the same course, which a nice thing about accounting is they're often commensurate, and if you did earn a passing grade of C or better, it's usually not a problem, but we do need to review those on a case-by-case basis.
One student asked, is there a prerequisite for the government accounting course? And the answer is yes. The Principles of Financial Accounting is the basic prerequisite for all other courses that we offer.
So if you're not interested in pursuing a certificate and you just want to take a class like that one a la carte, and you took principles or commensurate course at another university, you can submit that to us because you're not asking for us to give you credit for it towards a certificate. You're just asking for it to be used to fulfill the prerequisite requirement. So it's a slightly less stringent requirements. Just let us know and we can review your previous coursework, check with the instructor to make sure everything's in place, and then that would meet the prerequisite requirement.
One question that we got, and Jim, you might be able to help us with this one. A student said that they might not have access to a computer for periods of time. Are the professors flexible with schedules and due dates for people in my situation? So what I'll say first is that our courses do have weekly deadlines. And for the most part, you are expected to meet those deadlines. That includes discussions, homework assignments, and exams. Now, whether or not a professor is willing to work with you may depend on your schedule, and it may depend on the professor. Jim, do you have any input on that?
Well, yeah, I have students that have issues like that. I have one in my current course that right after the course started, they went on a European vacation. Well, I'm not gonna hold their feet to the fire and say, well, yeah, you didn't meet the deadline. So I work with the students on a case-by-case basis. Usually when I get requests like that, it's for a good reason, and it's not really a problem. As long as they get their assignments in within a reasonable amount of time after the due date, then we're usually okay.
I think the key with that, and I think Jim would probably agree, is letting us know as soon as possible.
Right.
Obviously sometimes with like medical issues or such, it's not possible, but it's very frustrating for everyone involved when someone comes to us after the vacation and says, oh, now I need all the deadlines opened. If you tell us in advance, we have a lot more options to help you get through the quarter, because a lot of this work does build on itself. So sometimes we may want to give you a little bit to do in advance and then a little bit to do catch up at the end. But the more you tell us and sooner you tell us, the more we can help you.
We got a really, really good question here. How many classes should I take in a quarter and I work full time?
Yeah.
We always say to that, and to any student, regardless of if you're full-time or you're a full-time student, is you should never be taking more than 2 courses in a quarter. And it can be kind of difficult with our course offering schedule anyway. Yeah. You'll find that sometimes the prerequisite for one course is being offered concurrently with the other course that you want to take. So we don't recommend taking more than 2 per quarter. We have had students take 3. It just depends. We on average only offer 4. It is a heavy course load, especially if you're taking some of the more advanced courses. I'm sure Jim would discourage you from taking his courses with any other courses concurrently because it is a lot to handle in one quarter.
Yeah, my courses were going through 2 chapters a week, and we're talking maybe 30 or more pages per chapter, and plus homework and going through the lecture. And that's and to work full time. That's right there. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah.
And that's the key. Our program is specifically designed for working adults. If you're not working and you're looking for a full-time collegiate experience, then you probably want to look maybe to a different institution like a community college. That's why some people will complain, oh, I'm trying to take 4 courses at once and your schedule doesn't allow for it. Well, that's not who we service. We're really designed for the person who's trying to do this later in life and is looking to take just 1 or maybe 2 courses at a time.
One thing that might be good to reiterate, and someone asked about, was, is there a recommended order in which to take the classes?
Yeah.
Michelle mentioned this earlier, but it might be good to reiterate, is you do need to take Principles of Financial Accounting first, unless you're transferring it in from another institution. And then the logical sequence after that is Intermediate Accounting Part 1, followed by Intermediate Accounting Part 2, which it's important to note those can't be taken concurrently. And then after that is Principles of Cost Accounting. And then from there, the elective courses can be taken in just about any order. But I will say that individual income taxation and auditing are two of our most difficult advanced courses. And we don't recommend taking those concurrently with another course, just so you can focus all of your time on that.
Yeah. Sometimes people will take Principles and Intermediate Accounting 1 at the same time, especially people who are not working, because you can take those concurrently. You just have to plan for the time. But as you get farther along, you're really going to need that base knowledge before you move on to the specialized courses.
A really common question that we get all the time is, how long does it take to complete the certificate program? And for that, we always say it depends. On average, for the Accounting Essential Certificate program, you can expect to spend between 12 and 15 months, just because we don't recommend taking more than 2 courses a quarter. And not every course you need will be offered every quarter. So there is a bit, sometimes there will be a gap, sometimes you can take them concurrently. But for the CPA exam track, you can expect to spend a minimum of 18 months taking that certificate program. I mean,
because it requires 36 quarter credit units. That's a lot of courses. And so to get those 9 courses out of the way, even if you transfer one in, you're just going to have it's a long-term plan.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's any other questions coming in.
Now would be a good time to use the Q&A box if you have any burning questions.
And if you think of anything after the webinar, you could always follow up with an email. We put our email there on the screen, and you can always follow up afterwards. And then also, just to remind you, when Naomi sends out the follow-up email, she's going to include the following things. She's going to include the information on how to use your discount code. She's going to include Diane Carr's contact info for people interested in extra features on financing your education. She's going to include the California CPA Board's kind of what I call the quick guide to education requirements. And also that'll have a link to their website. And she's also going to include some literature from the Becker rep, so you can see what you want to consider when you sign up for the exam prep. But beyond that, feel free to correspond with us or Student Services with any of your questions. All right.
I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you, Jim, for coming and speaking.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you in our classes. Bye-bye.